going? What are we working on today? So today I am polishing off the GM section, and I think I actually want to reorganize how these things fit together. Though I'd be totally down to hear your thoughts here. Where right now we've got the Game Master Toolkit, and the idea here is this will be all the things to make it easy to run the setting for the DM, because I've read way too many of these books. Eberron comes to mind, where it's got like, I don't know, probably 200 pages or so devoted to the setting, but in a way that just is like a lore dump. It is really hard to take any of these pieces and actually like easily build stuff out, especially if the players are roaming around and exploring and doing whatever, and you're like, I don't know, my experience is half the time I have to make it up anyways. So, hello, Tech Snake, welcome. So what I'm thinking of doing is structuring this where, all right, perfect, where we've got the general overview, kind of giving you some tips for using it, one of which is don't use everything. And then I'm going to dive in with kind of going through each of the areas. So we've got the bowels, which is the sort of undercity within Zephyr's Vale. And then we have details about each of the factions, and then essentially how to get out of the bowels, what the challenges or getting into them, and then notable NPCs. So this is my general thought for each section to make it super easy to use. And then within each section, I've got 3 points of interest called out. I debated about doing more, but honestly, like if you have too many, then it gets hard to use again. So this is where I stopped. I did the read aloud text followed by kind of some general overview to help the DM use that, and then 6 plot hooks with some notes to get in there. Now what I'm thinking about doing is I could technically fit, obviously we have an illustration that would kind of make that challenging, but I could technically fit all 3 points of interest and the section description on the same page if there isn't an illustration. So for the core, if I could figure out how to fit Veilbreaker Warren further up, then I could have the core and all 3 of their areas, the Measured Mug Tavern, the Weaving Market, and the Whisper Theater, all on the same page. So you could see like all the details about the core and then all the sections in the core. Use everything. Yes. William, man after my own heart here. I mean, I always dig through all that stuff. So if we could figure out how to shift this up, then we could have all of it on one spread to make it super easy when players are roaming around in that area to use all that. And I think that would be a better design than what I've currently got here. But I need to figure out how to get that to fit. So one option is to shrink this so that we have this taking up half the page, and then Veilbreaker Warren shifts up, and then that all works. I think before I go too in, maybe what I should do is just do I'll insert a couple pages here and then do kind of like a test one to see what that actually looks like, to make sure before I go through the effort of trying to figure out how to fix that, it doesn't actually backfire and create more work with less value. Oh, thanks, William. I appreciate it. I love building this stuff for you all, so I'm glad to be able to bring this stuff to life with everyone. All right, let's see. So I think what we could do, just for now, we'll take these 2 sections. InDesign set up interestingly where these blocks, like I can just show you real quick, this is actually tied to the other text before and after it. So if I expand this, it'll actually pull all that stuff in here. So it's both useful for being able to really very quickly redesign the flow of a page without having to have all these independently text blocks that you're just moving back and forth everywhere. Let's see, are there any more subclasses for the summoner in the works? Yes, actually there are. I don't know if I have that manuscript handy, but I'm assuming you've seen the one in here. I'll just jump to it real quick. The constructor. This is one of my favorite illustrations with this piece. Let's bump up that graphics quality real quick. I don't think that, there we go. All right, took a second. But yeah, so we've got the constructor, and then there's one in Paths of Power. That one has gone through a first draft. I need to do some more work on it before I send it out. There's some things that I haven't quite worked out, but I will be dropping that likely in Discord. Let's see, this is supposed to wrap up end of May, so then I'll switch over to working on that after we finalize the printer stuff. So I'd guess probably maybe June, July timeframe. I'll drop that one. And then I also plan on in the next book. The subclasses I think are one of my favorite things to work on, and people seem to be very interested in based on every survey I've ever run. So I plan to drop another summoner for that one as well. So thanks for the question, William. All right, let's see. Back to our topic of today. Boom. Okay, so we were going to move out Veil Breaker's Warren. That's the hideout for the rebels. And then we can shift this stuff up. So let's just drag it up to the top. And then we'll have to see if we can fit everything in here. That looks good. All right, so will we be able to make it all magically fit? My guess is no. We'll probably have to change stuff, but let's just pretend for the moment that it looks good. And then, dun. Okay, so that was actually okay as is there. I think this is what we want. So obviously I have to fix this. Probably have to delete a little bit either from the, yeah, probably from both, honestly. I think this is what we want though. I think this is going to be a much better experience than what I've got right now, where you have like the last one of the previous section on the next section's page, rather than having all of them in one spot. That just, as a DM running this thing, I think it'd be so much easier to be able to flip to the section. Oh, hi. There's a cat on my lap. You can see the tail, I assume. But flip to the section that's for that particular area, and then from there, you would be able to go ahead and use any of those pieces there, using those plot hooks, etc., and have it all self-contained. And then if they go to a different spot, obviously jump to the next page, but then just have it one page per area to very easily get the feel vibe for that spot, and then the points of interest in there. I think that's just going to be the win. So I think this is going to be a game of subtraction rather than adding today to get everything to fit. But let's see what we can do. So let's move these things. I guess one thing I could do is I could change the names, and then I don't have to reorder the places. I guess we should probably do it based on size though, because if they're already a good size, it's like these ones will work as is, so that's easy. We could potentially expand this out a little bit if we wanted, but honestly, having the nice break there makes it clean and easy to use. Okay, so this one's done. Beautiful. All right, this one. All these extra lines on the page are to try to make sure that everything stays clean with the formatting, and make sure that when it's printed, it doesn't get cut off. So anything outside of these boxes in the center, there's like these two vertical ones. If it's outside of that, it has a risk of not making it through the print correctly. And then there's the two lines on the end here. I can zoom in for a second. Things that the page is going to end at this black line. If you want it to have like an illustration or something that ends at that, you actually want to go all the way up to the very edge here, and then that will get cut. So they're all uniform, but they won't all be like exactly the same size. So if you don't go right to the edge here, you might have just like a tiny sliver of the paper showing through. So just best practice is trying to keep those clean and tidy. And then, yeah, I think that'll work good, because this is going to be, this is the Exocron outpost. And so I think having that after that section should be fine. Although we could move that. We could put it before. That's an easy change if we decide we want to do that. So we can play with that. But all right, let's see. How are you going to fit? You're not. Okay, so this one's going to need a little cleanup too. Probably cut down the wasteland text just looking at it, because that one's a bit longer, both top and bottom. Stuff in the first box is like read aloud, where you could just literally read it to the players when they've encountered that area, make it easy to describe and let them know what they're doing. Let's see, do you use printers in the US, right? Yes, I do. The problem I'm going to see is that the printers buy their materials from a variety of different places. I don't know the full details. Some of it's from Canada, some of it's from China, and obviously we're going to run into challenges with tariff costs on stuff coming in there. But I decided to use printers in the US when I did my first, well, I just want to do my full first print run because it seemed like a like really high risk to add 3 months to the delivery time with trying to go ship from China to the U.S., get through customs, and make it in. And so even though the cost was higher, second piece, I also kept running into quality control issues when I had some test prints done. I'd get a couple like book proofs, and they were off. Either size was like slightly different between like a couple examples, which is weird, especially when I have that spine that has that illustration forming along it. Other issue was the uh, there's just a communication breakdown where I'd be asking for like a certain thickness of paper, and then they'd send me something, and it's not that thickness, and then I might ask a couple different questions, and I would just get a response that's like, your proof is on the way, and it's like, well, you didn't answer any of these questions, so I don't actually know what I'm going to be getting. So that was always a challenge. I think this is looking good though. But yeah, so shipping from China adds a lot of quality control issues that I ran into on the book side, and then timeline. So it just didn't seem worth the risk for the increased margin. I'd rather get you guys all the books faster anyways. Because nothing sucks more than being super excited about a Kickstarter. Well, I'm sure there's things that suck more, but when you're super excited about a Kickstarter and then it takes like a year plus to get to you, and they're like, there's too many of these there's projects that are super late too, where it's like, all right, promise to get in a year, and then 2 years later they're still working on it. Yeah, scope creep is a real thing. Let's see. Actually, no, the convergent aberrations have like a scope creep of sorts where, I don't know if you ever played StarCraft, where the Zerg has that like I think it is called creep, the ground covering stuff where they have to build their buildings on. But I thought that'd be a cool idea with this like blight that kind of expands out from these aberrations that clearly don't belong on the planet. All right, let's see. I need to figure out what to do with this. Everything else is going to fit. I need to adjust text here. So I think I'm going to delete a little bit out of both of these for this one. That side looks good. This one's, I think we can just leave it as is. This one needs a little bit on the wasteland side cleaned up. And then that's good. And then here we can just start building out. Wait, wasteland. Did I already do the wasteland? Oh, I did. Why did I duplicate that? Oh, you know, I wonder if this is a weird frag. No, it's not. Huh. I don't know. I've got that in there twice. Well, time to get rid of it. I'm going to save just in case we run into... I have had this really weird experience where InDesign has the presentation mode, like to see what the final document looks like this. And then they have the working version where you can see all the lines. And sometimes jumping between those two, things change, and it's always been caught me off guard. Yeah, I have waited for a long time on a couple different projects as well. I don't remember how long Helianas took to come out, but that was a really long project. I've stopped actually backing the really big ones because just looking at them, they often have so many SKUs that even if they raise like $1 million, $2 million, $4 million, I have a really hard time believing they can actually deliver what they're promising, because you would need so many people to build that. I don't actually think they raise enough money, and they definitely don't have enough time. Which ones were you waiting on, William? Or are you still waiting on them? All right. Yeah, okay. I think this doesn't look like an artifact issue, because that's just in there twice, so I must have copied it in there when I was moving this over. All right. Loot system. I think this is a really fun one. The way that I've got this designed, hopefully people are finding it super easy to use. I do like how it came out, where you're really just, let's move that down, replacing the DM's job of having to figure out like, oh, what would be some cool loot for this encounter, and trying to generate stuff on the fly, where instead this is just let you, based on whatever they fight, roll some dice, and then they figure out what they get, and then and you only need to roll, well, I guess you need to roll one check. So, oh yeah, Steinhardt's. I don't actually know what Larson's is. Let's look it up. Ledger of Treasures and Trinkets, huh? So we got this one. Oh, it's a Loot Tavern product too? I'm surprised. I don't know. Maybe I'm not surprised. When was it supposed to get delivered? Oh, August of last year, huh? But it was funded. April 2023. Yeah, that's a long time ago. I didn't realize Steinhardt's was Loot Tavern as well. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I have a really tough time with any of these projects where they're just so late, especially if they do this regularly. Because then it just feels like they're not giving accurate estimates. All right. Well, I can be different, right? Deliver on time. Deliver early. That's the goal. See if these tariffs break that. All right. Yeah, I think. Should we put this up on the top of the other side? Maybe. See what that looks like. I think having the instructions before the table is a better play. Yeah, I'll have you all read through an early version of this and see if this makes sense. But I think that probably works. We could move. Oh, you know what we could do? Might be interesting. What if we made the harvest window just bigger? Because I don't know that the order on that matters. Yeah, I think that'll work. Good use of space. Yeah, I noticed there were a lot of programs working with Loot Tavern, or projects. Because I remember, I can't remember who I was talking to. One of the influencers on YouTube. He also was doing something through them. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of stuff. Okay, we need this needs to be closer, because this is the framework for this. The dynamic toolkit, we could shift to the next page. We probably want all of that on the same spot. So move that down. This one is going to be fun as well. I mean, honestly, I'm biased. They're all fun, right? But the way that I'm planning to use this... Oh, crap. I forgot this was part of that other one. Okay, maybe we won't have that. Much space. Let's see. We might actually not have enough space. Okay, so... Where to put this? All right. The idea here was I had some requests to make, honestly, to make the system more complicated for harvesting with other things. I think this can absolutely be a killer idea at specific tables, but I'm very much in the mind of making things as simplistic as possible with ways to add other things to it. Because if you've got too many systems and they're all too complicated, I don't know if you've ever played one of those MMOs or even like one of Larian's games with like Divinity Sin 2, where the crafting system, it's like, ooh, this sounds cool. I could get into this, but it feels like I have to spend a bunch of time learning an entirely different game within the game in order to even use it, and that is not ideal. And so I didn't want to replicate that. There's plenty of complicated systems out there. I just want to make something super, super easy where I want to do the minimum so that the players feel like they have agency and can actually do things and their decisions matter. But it's not so complicated that you couldn't just drop it into any system. So there's not going to be enough space. We have what? Quarter of a page. We need to fit all of this stuff if possible. I think it's going to be impossible. Even though we have the whole page now. I guess we could move the Magic Shop toolkit and put that first or just later. I think these make sense to have right next to each other though. Too bad we can't stick them with this our lonely friend up here, the Veilbreaker's Warren. Yeah, it's not a fair way to put that. I think what I'm going to do on this page here is actually, I'm thinking like a 3D architectural view, semi like top down, like bird's eye, with like the city levels expanded with the points of interest called out in there, and more of like a hand drawn sketch of sorts, where actually, kind of give a vibe from the, nope, not what I'm looking for. Body modifications. Oh, it's really hard to see in this view. Let's bump up that quality here. Yeah, something like this, like a Leonardo da Vinci sort of sketch, if you will, that's from Creed, where he can then be making notes just like we've got here that adds like flavor and quality to that. That's what I'm thinking. That would be really cool to stick here. So not only is it like a city map, but you get this perspective to really just dive in and feel like he has been mapping this out by hand as he's been exploring it. So thanks, William. I think it's gonna be awesome. So I have just about, actually this morning I wrapped up all of the different areas, so I think I've got enough to start building the art brief for the illustrator. He seemed super excited about the concept, so we'll see if he's still excited once I have all the details. But I think it'll be good. Okay, back to our challenges here. We've got to figure out what to do with this. Honestly, the easiest thing to do would be delete it, but I don't know that I want the bowels to only have 2 areas. I also don't know that I want to get rid of this illustration here. And if we shrink it, because we could do that, if we made it like half a page, that loses so much. Can't do it. Can't do it. All right. Hard decisions. What to do with that? Because we got to figure out what to put on these pages. How many pages are we at, anyways? I don't know. We might need to make the tough call and drop it, or drop one of them. Let's see, because we've got the Sandstone Mine and the Blackwater Bazaar. So we got like a underground market, which does have a like dueling fight club kind of thing in there. If GM's players wanted to play with that, we've got the Sandstone Mine. I debated whether this should be a quarry or not, but if they are creating tunnels in here to get to other stuff at the same time, it's kind of like a hybrid. I decided mine is, because I don't think a quarry has ever, that I've been able to find details on, had like tunnels running through it for some of these things. It always seems like I don't know, take everything as you just keep moving in or down rather than looking for specific veins of material. But I am by no means an expert here. Let's see. I can hear some rain coming. It's sunny earlier. Weather's been crazy. We had, what was that, a couple days ago? It was pouring. Then it was totally crystal clear sky, no clouds in sight. Then it started hailing like crazy. And then back to rain. All right. I know, I'm just bouncing back and forth between these. Well, let's keep mapping this out down here. We'll see what the stuff we've got looks like, and then see where we want to go with it. So we're gonna need to move this up. Leave that there for the moment. All right, these are the big ones. Oh, not what I want to do. What did I do? Like, oh, tried to grab them all, and there was a friend who jumped in. Okay, so we want to pull all that stuff. So let's take that, drive it up here, because I do, if possible, I have this idea for like a theme guide where you could shift, like maybe you're playing a game that's much more, I don't know, maybe you're really super into the cyberpunk side of things and you've got computers and hacking and all that kind of stuff, and you want to adapt a setting for it, mine or someone else's. I thought it'd be really cool to give like a theme shifting guide where you could take it from heroic mythic fantasy to grimdark to cyberpunk to, I don't know, whatever other themes people are interested in exploring, and how you would change like a kind of encounter or a monster or whatever to any of those. I think that would be cool and useful. All right, let's see here. We want, all right, I'm looking at this because we've got, so this kicks off the dynamic encounter piece, and then I got a bunch of notes over here on random stuff I was thinking about. So ideally, I want to fit all of that, if possible, together. But I think there's going to be too much. What is this? Table of convergence. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I don't think. I think I still have like 3 options or something I need to add in here as well. Let's see. Where do we sit on the spacing? I know. It's ugly, ugly, ugly. Let's fix that. Get rid of you. Shift you over here. Half the time, I feel like I'm just playing Tetris, trying to get everything to squeeze in correctly. Yeah, I think, unfortunately, what's going on here? It's not. Is that actually there? It is. So why won't it let me select it? Oh, because it's not there. Just got to shift it over. Well, that answers that question. Originally, I was thinking I could fit both of these on the same spread. I had 12 options for each because I wanted to have kind of an equal split between the 3 pillars of play. So if you've got something that is going more of the role play route to change up the encounter, something that's maybe more on the exploration side, or something that is on the combat side, and then within that, I'd kind of broken that down into wherever that is. Actually, it's this table here. So hazards, objectives, reinforcements, and tactics. So the idea being like hazards would be, I don't know, the building catches on fire, or a magical portal in this unstable landscape opens and sucks things through or pushes things back out. Objectives would be maybe the treasure you're going for, someone actually steals and is taken off running with it. Or you're there to fight these creatures, but they have a captive and they throw them into a lake, or things like that. Reinforcements could be for either side, or a third party, where you've got a third hostile force shows up, you've got a couple of goblins jump out of a hidden tunnel, your friend NPC, Bob, charges in, like any of those kinds of things. Or tactics side would be their changing how they're fighting. Maybe they're really mad at the barbarian, so even though it's not necessarily in the best interest of the party, they're all attacking that barbarian. Or they've seen someone heal, so they focus fire that person, or they're a little demoralized, so they're actually retreating. Maybe it's chaotic retreat, maybe it's tactical retreat, things like that. They switch to bows, any of those kinds of things. So I wanted to have 3 of each of those options. And obviously there's some blending in there, like objectives and tactic could overlap, where they change their tactics by trying to drown one of the captives, and then that obviously changes your objective as well, because maybe you're trying to save them. This might also be one of those, maybe it's easier to just delete a couple. We could make these D10s, and then see if we can get this all to fit. I think, we still might run into issues with that. All right, well, yeah, let me make a note. I think I need to read through these in detail later, but I think I might need to switch them to D10s. So that we can get them all to fit. Because other option is just to try to shrink how big some of these are. Like obviously, just looking at like this one is enormous. So that sucks up space for several of these. Trying to keep them at 2 is kind of doable. This one breaks it a handful of times, but even still, that is over the halfway mark. This one that doesn't even have that many in here, will that fit with that? No, it takes over one of them. So, and these ones are both one-liners. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to shrink it. I don't see a way to fit that. I'm gonna have to shrink it and be more succinct in my language there. Good stuff. All right. Okay, that's gonna run down here. We need to fit this somewhere still. So, and we got these other two here. Really need to pull all this stuff out of here so that it starts at the dynamic encounters piece there. All right, well, if we're not using these 2 pages for now, we'll get rid of those. Okay. All right, I think we got to start with figuring out what to do with this one. So, oh, how I hate to delete things. That is definitely the simplest solution. Well, then the question becomes too, should I delete this one or one of these other 2? From what I'm, give this one just 2 of them. This one already breaks the, or honestly we could move the image out. All right, let's play with that option. I like this image, I'm gonna use it somewhere, but maybe it's just not destined to be here. You know, maybe it's got to be somewhere else. So if we shrink this, drop this here, and then push this down. I think the bows is actually enormous, honestly. So if we delete that, and then, did that in the wrong order. That's okay. Oh shit. Just happened. Okay, there we go. Because we want here, and then here. And then now we'll get rid of this. Yeah, I guess if we're trying to make them all one page, the illustration doesn't make sense. Because that breaks that vibe, that layout structure. Because we'd have to have the bowels here and then those 3. So there'd be no way to have any illustrations except between them, which we did here. I'm wondering if we should honestly put this one before, because we're going to have a lot. Well, maybe not. I think it's probably still better. You could quickly go page to page to jump between the sections, so it'd be very easy to go through all of them very quickly. I think that's the way. Okay, so that means we're going to delete this page. We want to keep our illustration, so let's cut that. I have like a bank down here. Oh no, something got messed up somewhere else. These should not all be offset. Well, let's go fix that. I have my bank I need to put somewhere. If it doesn't all fit in this book, we just put it in the next one, right? Okay, there is. Oh, when I deleted that, it shoved this down. So let's fix that by just pulling the text back up here. And then now we can delete this page and everything will be fixed. Okay. Okay, yeah, that'll work. So, let's see, I don't think there's anything on this page, but let's delete that. Okay, so now we can fit all this good stuff here somehow. Might need some more deleting. Okay, let's increase the size here. Yeah, the valves is pretty big. So, I think it's the right call though. We'll move the image out, which is definitely the easier solution. And then, well, the easiest solution would have just been deleting that, but it doesn't feel right. You guys deserve the Warrens. So, if we instead, and we got too much stuff in here. I think we're gonna have to shorten this. Let's see. So if we shorten the air here, it's too hard for me to write and talk and interact with you also. I'll have to do that after, but I think that'll be the plan. So if we shorten that, then how much do we need to shorten it? How long was this thing? Blackwater Bazaar starts there, right? Well, let's short a lot, don't we? Yeah, because it still hasn't pulled that up, and I don't think it's much longer than that. So, if we shorten that though, then that's all there. So now we just need to figure out what else we're going to put on this page. And I actually think I might call out the faction idea. So one thing I was thinking about was how to use the factions, and an easy way to do that would just be build like a very simple I don't know if you've ever played one of the games that has a faction allegiance kind of setup where like you do things and you get positives to that allegiance, and then maybe you get discounts on materials, or you can hire their members to help you on missions or things like that. And then you have the other direction where you get to the point where they're like just hostile towards you and will attack on sight, that kind of thing. So we could build like a very simple structure for that, where anytime you do something that's positive, you go like 1 on a scale of like, I don't know, 0 to 5, and then, or you go 1 in the other direction, and then at maybe 1, 3, and 5, and -1, -3, and 5, there's certain benefits or disadvantages that you have with that faction. So we could design something like that, because that was one of the ideas I had that we could put out there. I think the theme, I don't know if the theme would fit here. That's probably something worth considering, like the theme shift guide that I was briefly highlighting. So that could be something else. Right now we're pushing way too far. This Temple of Lost Souls needs to end on this page up here. Oh, wait a second. Wasteland. Why am I seeing the waste? Oh no, did I copy that page? I might have to revisit that. I might have this copied in the wrong order. Yeah, because why? Is this standalone? Oh, fun. Yeah, then I think this could work. So if we get all that stuff shifted back up, that puts us with this page being the loot system. Maybe need to shrink it a little bit. Then we jump directly into the magic shop, where you can use that magic shop, you know, if you want with the loot system or separately or in addition. 1 to 5 is small, extend it to 1 to 10. Sorry, I just saw your comment text. Which 1 to 5 is small? And then that would dive into the dynamic encounters toolkit, and this is where we're going to use all these tables. So this will be up here. And the way this one was structured is you've got tier 1, meaning this is players level, I think I called it out in here, it's like levels, faction ranks. 1 to 5 is small. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, well, it would technically be 210, but you're thinking that it would be up to positive 10 and down to negative 10. We could do something like that. And then maybe you're having you could still have the interactions at -1, then you can do -5 and -10, so you have like a little bit more things that can happen before you end up with these different spots. Yeah, let's see, make a note. Well, I'll just call it on here. Faction points could go -10 to +10. All right, got it. Make it a bullet so we don't lose it. Yeah, I think that's probably, let's see, let me think about that. We don't have to add more levels in there. We could just have more points that you can have going positive or negative, and then once you get to like the top or bottom of those things, and they start getting pretty negative. Yeah, I'm thinking the same kind of thing. My thought was like they're hostile on sight, and they're actively trying to thwart the character. So could be bounty, could be sabotage, could be blackmail, could be, I don't know, discrediting them. I think there's lots of options there. So let's see. Yeah, so that'll roll through there. Yeah, here it is. Tiers of play. 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20. And I've had so many people ask me for like higher level stuff. I included it. So we've got 21 plus for anyone playing crazy games up to level 30. I don't know, or higher. I don't know how you're doing it. I feel like, especially combat, once you get into above like level, I don't know, 12, combat starts to take potentially multiple sessions. So I can't imagine a combat at level 30. I guess maybe it's just instant wipes one way or the other. Fighting with the cosmos. All right. I think we're in a pretty good spot for general layout here. So let's flow through this one more time. But we've got Game Master Toolkit. Actually, you know what I should do? I should just shift this over, and I can have more of the space devoted to that image I was talking about with the drawing of the city. And then I don't have to try to shove something else in here, but I don't have to try to cram all of that into one page. Maybe that's the way to do it. So I can fit it all here. I guess I can write the faction toolkit piece and see if that fits, or if that's too long and it makes sense to just shove that onto the next page. Because I did originally think about talking about that before diving into each of the different areas, because my thought was if you can have that ahead of time, then as you're doing these things and people are taking some of these plot hooks that are for or against one of the factions, then you can use that to figure out how they kind of stack up in there. But yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense if it comes online too late. So yeah, let's just plan on that, and then if the image makes sense, we can then take over that space and then move it later. If not, we'll just keep it there. So we'll do, this will be the faction allegiance toolkit. Oh goodness, toolkit. All right, and then this is where we'll have the -10 to 10, and we probably want a table. Make it easy. Keep track. So we'll do, I think we're actually going to only need 2, so we'll get rid of this one. Delete that column. So we're going to do, this is actually forget what to call that in a second, but this is going to be -10. This will be -5. -1. Again, we could have more layers in here, but the more layers we have, the more complicated it is for the DM to run. I think keeping it simple, so then we'll do we need one more row. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know why it always changes this. That should just be list item. Clear overrides. Boom. All right. So this is 1. This is 3. No, this is 5. And this is 10. Yeah, that's it. That's what we want. And then we'll make this. All right, we need to get this to fit on one. I guess we need to figure out what we're calling this. So this is something like favorability, or maybe we should just go with allegiance, or I don't know, I'll have to think of what that's called. Okay, so -10, I'm thinking something like attacks on site and uses substantial resources to thwart. Yeah, I guess if we can fit it all, well, we won't be able to fit that all, because I need to shrink this, because it's going to need to fit here. And then, yeah, I think -10 would be where they're just like extremely hostile. Before that, I'll have to figure out what that variation looks like. But -1, I'm thinking, is like you've done something to piss them off, and they don't like you, but they still will trade with you, but at like worse prices, and maybe they won't do anything that potentially risks themselves. So it's like when you're playing Settlers of Catan and there's one person that's like pretty far ahead, and you're only going to trade with them, or maybe they're not really far ahead, maybe they're a couple points ahead, and so you'll trade with them, but it's like, I'll give you the one thing you're looking for if I get 2. And so they're at a disadvantage. And then by the time you get to 5, like you won't do anything with them, and you're working to bypass them. And then by the time you get to like -10, you're working with all the other players to try to exclude them to win, or keep them from winning, something like that. I think that's the vibe. So we'll roll with that. All right, I think we got a good selection on the layout here on how we're going to get all this stuff to fit and have it feel good and easily be usable. I'm bummed we had to move out that illustration, but it's for the better good. All right, so Game Master Toolkit section will have the details on we'll have the details on how to use this and make it into your own needs. We'll dive into the Faction Allegiance Toolkit. This will be juxtaposed to the illustration of the kind of architectural diagram, hand-drawn sort of feel from Creed, with mapping out what the place looks like and what's on each of the layers. We'll then dive into the bowels, exploring the Undercity, trying to figure out what to shrink so we can get all this to fit here, but then do that. Then we dive through the core, the heavens, and then the wasteland. We got our killer illustration of the Exochron outpost. I still think this is one of my favorites that came out of this project. Might be one of my favorites of all of the projects, honestly. There's just something about it that gives you that, I don't know, gives you a good feel. And then jumping over here, we've got the loot system. So that'll run here. If we can fit it, we might just have to shrink some of this stuff. Maybe adding that complexity is too complex, and we'll delete some of that, and then we can fit in the magic shop on this page as well. That would be ideal. And then we dive into the toolkit for modifying the encounters as they're unfolding and keeping them dynamic and feeling alive. We got to delete, I think, a couple options in each of these. Some of these will be easy. I didn't make them yet, so that's nice. It's gonna be hard though for the ones that I finished. although I suppose maybe I can move some of them out, put it in the other ones, and then scale them up. That's an option. Let's see, and then here we've got, I think this will be the theme, or the theme shift guide. So then if we've moved the faction piece up and do delete our note here, called that out. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then we dive into creatures. So that feels solid. And we've got 2 pages left that we can fit in this book. I'll have to double check everything, but that would be awesome, because then we could add a little more things that I've been wanting to, but not have the space for. I need to get that index done as well. Okay, and maybe we can fit one of those illustrations somewhere. Cool. All right. Well, I think this was awesome time. Appreciate those of you chiming in, and if you missed the live version of this and you did have questions, just leave them in the chat and I will respond to you as they come up. So, yes sirree. All right. Good hanging out with you all. I will talk to everyone soon. Always feel free to reach out, Discord, email,